I felt the chill before I opened my eyes that morning. Not the kind that comes from an open window, but the kind that settles in your bones when something fundamental has shifted. Martha Evans was my neighbor for 15 years, a vibrant woman of 72 who walked her golden retriever every day at precisely 7:30 a.m. She won't be walking him today. A simple morning mistake, one that millions of seniors make daily, changed everything for her family. You probably have a morning routine too, movements so automatic you barely register them. The way you throw your legs over the bed edge, the immediate reach for your phone, the quick dash to start the coffee maker. These habits seem inconsequential, harmless even. But what if I told you that for those of us over 65, these seemingly innocent actions could be silently undermining our health? Martha's daughter Lisa told me how it happened, her voice still trembling days later. Mom was always independent, stubborn even. She refused to believe her body needed different care than it did at 50. This stubborn independence is something many of us wear as a badge of honor, isn't it? We push through, determined to prove age hasn't changed us. The paramedics explained that Martha had likely experienced a sudden drop in blood pressure upon standing, causing her to lose balance and fall. Not dramatic enough for headlines, too common to seem dangerous, yet devastating enough to irreversibly alter the lives of everyone who loved her. I keep wondering, could a few simple changes to her morning routine have given Martha more years with her grandchildren? I wake up differently now. Before Martha's incident, I'd leap out of bed at the first alarm, proud of my no snooze button discipline. Today, I pause. I wiggle my toes and fingers first, feeling life return to my extremities, allowing my body to remember it's attached to a brain that's about to demand movement. This small change has already eliminated the dizziness I used to dismiss as just one of those things. You might be thinking this sounds excessive, even a bit paranoid. I thought so too, until I spoke with Dr. Reynolds, a geriatric specialist who explained the science behind that first mistake, getting up too quickly. Overnight blood pools in the lower extremities, she said. When seniors stand abruptly, the cardiovascular system doesn't compensate quickly enough, resulting in orthostatic hypotension, a dangerous drop in blood pressure. He showed me a simple 3-step approach that's changed everything about my mornings. First, I take deep breaths and gently move my extremities while still lying down. Second, I roll slowly to my side before gradually sitting up, giving my body time to adjust to each position change. Third, I move my ankles in circles and stretch my arms before finally standing, allowing my circulation to stabilize. The difference is remarkable. No more gripping the nightstand. No more spots dancing before my eyes. No more feeling like I'm walking on a ship's deck for those first few minutes. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But simplicity doesn't diminish importance. Sometimes it underscores it. This small adjustment gives my 70-year-old body the respect it deserves after carrying me through 7 decades of life. I used to believe morning dizziness was just part of getting older, like needing reading glasses or forgetting where I put my keys. My friend Robert, 68, felt the same way until his doctor connected his chronic morning headaches to something surprisingly basic: dehydration. 8 hours without water is a long time, Robert told me over our weekly chess game. My body was literally thirsty for help. You lose significant water during sleep, through breathing, sweating, even the natural repair processes that occur while you rest. By morning, your blood has thickened slightly, making your heart work harder to pump it through your body. For younger people, this might go unnoticed. But for you and me, it can mean the difference between starting the day energized or exhausted. Dr. Reynolds explained that thicker, more viscous blood increases the risk of clots, stroke, and heart issues, especially in seniors who might already have underlying cardiovascular concerns. A simple glass of water first thing in the morning can reduce these risks significantly, she emphasized. Think of it as oil for a machine that's been sitting idle overnight. Robert now keeps a covered glass of water on his nightstand. Before even sitting up, he drinks it completely, giving his body what it needs to start rehydrating immediately. His morning headaches disappeared within a week, and his blood pressure readings have improved consistently over the past month. Such a small change, such profound results. It makes me wonder what other simple adjustments might improve our quality of life as we age. If you're finding these insights valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue sharing this potentially life-saving information with others who might need it. Now, let's continue with our journey through these critical morning mistakes. I remember laughing when my doctor first suggested my morning coffee might be part of my problem. "You'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands," I joked. Then Martha happened, and suddenly mortality felt less theoretical. I noticed my hands would shake slightly after my morning brew, my heart sometimes racing uncomfortably. Could something as beloved as coffee be contributing to my unsteady mornings? You might be equally attached to your morning caffeine ritual, that first sip that seems to bring the world into focus. But what happens when we consume coffee on an empty stomach? Cortisol levels spike, acid production increases, and blood sugar fluctuates wildly, especially for seniors whose metabolisms are already more sensitive. It's like flooring the gas pedal before the engine has properly warmed up. My neighbor Tom, a retired engineer and coffee enthusiast, discovered this the hard way. I'd been having these mysterious mid-morning energy crashes for years, he explained during our community garden session. Turns out, my beloved coffee on an empty stomach was sending my system into chaos, high alert followed by complete exhaustion. The human body becomes less forgiving with age, more vocal about imbalances. Following his doctor's advice, Tom now eats something small, a banana, a handful of almonds, a slice of whole grain toast, before his first cup. The difference was almost immediate. I don't get those acid reflux symptoms anymore, and my energy stays stable until lunch, he shared, looking more vibrant than I'd seen him in years. I've adopted this change too, and the steady calm it brings to my mornings feels like discovering a secret passage to youth. I felt ridiculous at first, doing stretches in bed like some octogenarian fitness influencer. What would my late husband say if he could see me? Probably something wry about saving the gymnastics for the grandkids. But after reading about Martha, I couldn't ignore the fourth mistake seniors often make: ignoring morning stiffness and moving too quickly before our bodies are ready. You might have noticed it yourself, that creaking feeling when you first stand, as if your joints are negotiating terms for the day ahead. What you might not realize is that overnight, your synovial fluid, the natural lubricant for your joints, becomes more viscous. Without proper movement to redistribute it, sudden actions can lead to unnecessary strain, pain, or dangerous loss of balance. Margaret, my walking group partner who recently turned 75, had been a dancer in her youth and understood body mechanics intuitively. "Think of your body like an old car in winter," she told me as we stretched before our Tuesday walk. "You wouldn't expect it to perform at top speed immediately. You'd warm it up first, get the fluids moving." Her morning routine includes gentle ankle rotations, knee hugs, and shoulder rolls before ever setting foot on the floor. Since incorporating these simple bed stretches into my routine, wiggling fingers and toes, rotating ankles, gently pulling knees toward my chest, my usual morning backache has virtually disappeared. It takes less than 2 minutes but makes hours of difference. Dignity in aging isn't about denying our changing needs, but adapting to them wisely, honoring what our bodies are telling us rather than forcing them into submission. I can't help wondering if Martha knew something was wrong that final morning. Did she feel the warning signs but push through them, determined not to give in to age? We often mistake listening to our bodies for weakness, don't we? As if acknowledging change somehow accelerates it. My own stubbornness nearly led to disaster last spring when I ignored persistent morning headaches until my daughter insisted on a doctor's visit. You might recognize this pattern in yourself: the dismissal of symptoms, the mental bargaining. "It's just age," we tell ourselves. Or, "Everyone gets dizzy sometimes." But our bodies speak a different language after 65, one with subtle dialects we must learn to interpret correctly. That vague discomfort might be dehydration, that brief unsteadiness a warning about blood pressure regulation. Dr. Reynolds shared a story about her father, a retired firefighter who prided himself on his physical resilience. He'd jump out of bed every morning like he was still responding to an alarm, until one day he didn't get up at all, she said quietly. A simple blood pressure check might have shown the problem developing, but he refused routine checkups. Preventable tragedies often hide behind our pride. I now keep a small journal by my bed, noting how I feel each morning upon waking, any dizziness, unusual stiffness, or heart palpitations. This simple tracking has revealed patterns I never noticed before. Slight dehydration after salty dinners, increased joint stiffness when the weather changes. Knowledge becomes power when we're willing to accept it, to see our changing needs not as surrender, but as strategic adaptation to a new phase of life. I don't know exactly when I started believing I was immune to the effects of aging. Perhaps it was watching my mother decline so rapidly after accepting her senior status. Or maybe it was society's messaging that value diminishes with age. Whatever the cause, I spent years ignoring the subtle shifts in my body's needs, determined to prove I could function exactly as I had in my 50s. You might be fighting this same battle, measuring your worth against your younger self's capabilities. But what if true strength lies not in denying change, but in responding to it intelligently? What if the wisdom we've earned through 7 decades includes learning how to honor our body's new requirements? There's dignity in adaptation, in strategic adjustment rather than blind resistance. Ellen, my book club friend who turns 80 next month, embraced this philosophy years ago. I don't see it as giving in, she explained over tea last week. I see it as giving myself what I need. My younger self didn't need afternoon rest or morning stretches. This self does. Her acceptance hasn't limited her life, it's expanded it. She travels more than any of us, hosting her grandchildren for adventures regularly. Since adjusting my morning routine to include these 4 simple changes, rising slowly, hydrating immediately, eating before coffee, and stretching gently, I've experienced more energy, clearer thinking, and steadier movement throughout my days. Each small adjustment feels less like accommodation of weakness and more like intelligent strategy, the kind of wisdom that comes only with decades of living in this body, learning its language. I sat with Martha's daughter Lisa after the memorial service, listening as she sorted through regrets. Mom complained about morning dizziness for months, she confessed, twisting her tissue between trembling fingers. I told her it was probably nothing serious, just part of getting older. I wish I'd known these were warning signs. Her pain was palpable, the weight of hindsight crushing. You might be in Lisa's position, watching a parent or partner navigate their senior years, unsure when to intervene and when to respect their independence. Or perhaps you're in Martha's shoes, experiencing changes you've been dismissing as inevitable. Either way, understanding these 4 morning mistakes could be the difference between thriving and merely surviving these golden years. Dr. Reynolds emphasizes that aging doesn't have to mean declining. The human body is remarkably adaptable at any age, she assured me during our last appointment. Simple adjustments can dramatically improve quality of life for seniors. She's seen countless patients reverse troubling symptoms through these basic morning changes, regaining confidence and independence they thought was permanently lost. I think about Martha every morning now as I follow my new routine: the slow rise, the glass of water, the small breakfast before coffee, the gentle stretches. In some ways, her story has given me additional years of quality living, a gift I wish she could have shared. Her mistake, our collective mistake, is assuming that age makes us fragile rather than simply different, requiring adjustments rather than surrender or stubborn denial. If this information has been valuable to you so far, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to reach more seniors with these potentially life-saving insights. Now, let's explore more about how these small changes can transform our mornings and potentially extend our healthy years. I used to rush my mornings, proud of how quickly I could progress from alarm to fully dressed. Still efficient at 70, I'd boast, as if speed were the measure of successful aging. Now I understand that this efficiency came at a cost: increased stress on my cardiovascular system, dehydration that thickened my blood, nutrient deprivation that left me vulnerable to caffeine's harsher effects, and joint strain that increased my fall risk. You might measure your mornings by similar metrics: how fast, how much accomplished, how similar to your routines from decades past. But what if we measured success differently? What if the true achievement lies in how well we adapt, how intelligently we respond to our body's changing needs. Perhaps wisdom isn't pushing through limitations but working harmoniously with them. My friend Harold, a 78-year-old former marathon runner, struggled with this shift in perspective. I felt like slowing down meant giving up, he admitted during our weekly walking group. Then my doctor explained it wasn't about slowing down, it was about sequencing better. By simply changing the order and timing of his morning activities, Harold maintained his independence while drastically reducing his symptoms. Since implementing these changes, I've noticed improvements beyond just physical well-being. My thinking is clearer in the mornings, my emotional resilience stronger. It makes perfect sense. When we're not fighting dizziness, dehydration, blood sugar crashes, or joint pain, our mental and emotional resources are freed for better things. There's a profound ripple effect that starts with these small adjustments and extends throughout our days, weeks, and potentially years. I wonder how many seniors are suffering needlessly, attributing their morning discomfort to just getting old, rather than specific, correctable habits. Statistics suggest that over 80% of people over 65 experience morning dizziness at least occasionally, yet fewer than 30% mention it to their doctors. We've normalized discomfort in aging, as if it were the inevitable admission price to longevity. You may have accepted certain limitations as non-negotiable aspects of growing older. Perhaps you've stopped mentioning the morning headaches, the moment of unsteadiness when standing, the acid reflux that follows your first coffee. But what if these symptoms aren't simply age taxes but messages? Your body communicating needs that, once addressed, could return you to greater comfort and capability. Carol, my neighbor who recently retired from nursing, put it perfectly during our garden committee meeting. "The body whispers before it screams," she said, describing how subtle morning symptoms often precede more serious health events. When we ignore the whispers, the slight dizziness, the mild dehydration headache, we force our bodies to communicate more dramatically. Her professional experience had shown her countless examples of small warnings gone unheeded. I've learned to listen to these whispers, to treat them as valuable intelligence rather than inconvenient complaints. My morning routine has become a conversation with my body rather than a command performance. I ask what it needs today. Sometimes it's extra stretching for stiffness, sometimes more water after a salty dinner, sometimes a heartier breakfast before coffee. This responsive approach has transformed my relationship with aging from adversarial to collaborative. I realized something profound last week. These morning adjustments aren't about limitation. They're about liberation. By giving my body what it actually needs rather than what I stubbornly think it should accept, I've gained more energy and stability throughout my days. The 10 minutes of slowness I've added to my mornings have given me hours of improved quality time later. You might be resisting similar changes, seeing them as concessions to age rather than strategic adaptations. Consider this perspective shift. These adjustments aren't about becoming elderly. They're about becoming expert in your own evolving physiology. Would you expect to drive a classic car exactly like a new one? Of course not. You'd adjust your handling to maximize its performance and longevity. Jack, my 82-year-old cousin who still teaches part-time at the community college, frames it as respect. "My body has carried me through 8 decades," he told me during our monthly lunch. "The least I can do is listen when it tells me what it needs." His morning routine includes all 4 protective practices we've discussed, plus a moment of gratitude for another day of life. The results speak for themselves. Since adopting these changes, my blood pressure readings have stabilized. My energy lasts throughout the day without the mid-morning crash I'd attributed to age, and I haven't experienced a single episode of that frightening dizziness that used to plague me several times weekly. Sometimes the most profound improvements come not from medical breakthroughs, but from simple alignment with our body's basic needs. I remember dismissing an article about senior morning habits last year, thinking it was just another example of treating older adults like children. How ironic that I now find myself eagerly sharing this information with friends, having experienced the dramatic difference these simple changes can make. Pride nearly cost me these improvements. Pride and the stubborn belief that acknowledging changing needs meant surrendering to decline. You might be feeling that same resistance, that same concern that adjusting routine somehow diminishes your capability or independence. But consider this. True independence comes from optimal functioning, not from forcing outdated patterns. These morning adjustments don't restrict your life. They expand your capacity to live it fully, with greater energy and fewer limitations. Dr. Reynolds uses a metaphor I find particularly helpful. Think of these changes as updating your operating system, she suggests. You wouldn't expect a smartphone to run optimally on software designed a decade ago. Your body at 70 plus has different processing requirements than it did at 40 or 50. This framing shifts the narrative from decline to upgrade, from loss to optimization. Since sharing these insights with my senior community group, I've heard countless stories of improvement. Margaret's persistent morning headaches resolved within days of adopting proper hydration. Robert's balance issues improved dramatically once he started rising gradually. Tom's digestive discomfort disappeared when he began eating before coffee. These aren't miracles. They're simply the results of aligning our habits with our body's actual needs, rather than our outdated expectations. I think about time differently now. Before implementing these morning changes, I viewed my remaining years as a gradual, inevitable decline. Now I understand that many aspects of aging are negotiable, not through denial, but through intelligent adaptation. By giving my body what it truly needs each morning, I've reclaimed quality of life I thought was permanently lost to time. You have this same opportunity to distinguish between inevitable aging and optional suffering. The years will pass regardless, but how you experience them remains partly within your control. These 4 morning adjustments, rising slowly, hydrating immediately, eating before coffee, and stretching gently, represent a powerful choice to age strategically rather than passively. Helen, who leads our community senior center at 86, embodies this philosophy perfectly. "I don't have time for preventable problems," she told our group with characteristic bluntness. "Every morning, I invest 10 minutes in these habits because they buy me hours of better living each day." Her vibrant energy and sharp mind offer compelling evidence for her approach. She hasn't escaped age, but she has minimized its unnecessary burdens. I've come to see my morning routine as an act of self-respect, acknowledging that this body, this miraculous vehicle that has carried me through 7 decades, deserves proper maintenance. The reward has been greater than I could have imagined. More stable energy, clearer thinking, better mood, and a profound sense that aging doesn't have to mean suffering. Martha's tragic story altered my path, potentially adding quality years to my life through 4 simple changes. I won't pretend these adjustments were effortless. Habits formed over decades resist change, and initially, I felt impatient with the slower morning pace. But gradually, a new appreciation emerged, not just for the physical benefits, but for the mindfulness these changes brought to my days. By starting more intentionally, every day unfolds with greater awareness and presence. You deserve this same quality of life, this same opportunity to distinguish between necessary adaptation and unnecessary suffering. Your years of experience have earned you wisdom about many things. Let that wisdom extend to how you care for your changing body. These simple morning adjustments represent not limitation, but liberation from preventable discomfort and risk. Martha's story doesn't have to be yours. Her mistake, rushing from bed, likely dehydrated, probably caffeine as breakfast, moving before her body was ready, is one we can all learn from and avoid. I imagine her sometimes, wondering if she had any indication that morning that something wasn't right. Did she dismiss subtle warnings her body sent? Did she push through dizziness out of habit? I choose a different path now, honoring these 7 decades of life by giving my body what it actually needs, rather than what my stubborn mind thinks it should accept. The reward has been a renewed sense of possibility, a quality of life I thought belonged only to my past. These aren't radical interventions, just simple, strategic adjustments that acknowledge biological reality. Martha's tragic story became my wake-up call. What will yours be? Thank you for taking the time to watch this video to the end. If you found this information valuable or potentially life-saving, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone you care about who might benefit from these insights. Together, we can help ensure that our golden years truly shine with health, dignity, and joy. Your support means everything, not just to me, but to all the seniors whose lives might change through this simple knowledge.